Right. Everybody, I hope you had a good time. Um, Here is on Humber, and oh dear, I just had a flash message. Internet connection is unstable, so it continues to survive. Here's Brough on Humber, and our photo I took some time ago. And the key feature here is the playing field, the centre, but also this very unusual shape of the land, which you can see here, with progressed curved field boundaries. The Humber is just here. I'll be mainly concentrating on this area, but we've done work elsewhere as well, which really I haven't got time to do in this talk. To put Brough in its wider context, here it is on the Humber estuary. And in a wider context, in the first century, jumping up really for the conquests of the north of Britain, probably from Old Wintringham or down here in Lincolnshire, almost certainly by boat, with another group moving up towards York here. And this is a map that I did some time ago showing distribution of first coins as of 2013. Notice this kind of ring of forts around here, all with conquest period origins as well. And here it is on a GIS model with the high ground, the edges of the Yorkshire Wolds, which you can see here, and the fort excavated by Philip Corder in the 1930s and partially by John Waiter in the 1950s, shown as the outline here. Although this is by no means solid, a lot of Brough is underbuilt areas which haven't yet to be investigated. And I've also got this walled enclosure, very struck by Daventio because we have similar problems here in defining exactly what it is. The little buildings here are known stone Roman buildings, so you can see that Roman Brough extends far beyond the walled perimeter, and in many ways is a linear settlement along two Roman roads. A key point to remember, though, is its location on the Humber, a major routeway to the European continent, and on the edges of what research has shown to be a tidal inlet, both in the Iron Age and Roman period. And it's crucial in understanding a site that I won't be talking about today, but we hope to investigate next year up here. We want to get actually since the 18th century, but the first real excavations took place with this wonderful group of people. The great Emeritus was appropriately dressed for excavation here. And the leader of the excavation, one Philip Cord, master at Bootham School in New York. And he set up a group based at Malton to investigate Roman Yorkshire. And as you can see, it is coordinated through the Hull University College Local History Committee. So my ex-university has had a great long tradition of contact with the town. What did they find? Conquest period fort, later fort, walled enclosure, and a possible weakness with a theatre inscription. And here it is, very famous. Um, it creates a lot of problems, however. We know when it was set up, sometime in the 140s, under Antoninus Augustus, and we've got this wonderful name, Marcus Ulpius Januarius, who it's been tested was a obviously Roman citizen. His grandfather was probably given the citizenship generally of the Emperor Trajan, was the aedile responsible for public buildings within Roman Brough and other duties as well. And what did he do? He gives a stage at his own expense. He's clearly running for election, so he wants to soften the popular look, make sure he gets in again. Right. It's caused a lot of problems. John Waiter dug at Brough in the 1950s and eventually said that it was a red herring, which has misled archaeologists. The problem was it was found reused in a later Roman building. And subsequently, there were many attempts to try and find it. So moving on here, we've got an example from Corner's excavation, and you can see one of the bastions that's found. And we've concentrated our work very recently within that area. The finds were quite spectacular. As you can see, a range of pottery and some very nice artifacts. One of my favorites being this little votive anvil, which was found outside the East Gate. We've got this nice French, probably French origin, ceramic, clay pipe, clay, fitting, lamps, brooches, etc. These are quite well known as well. The lead ingots, probably from Durham in Derbyshire, and it seems from the cluster of these that Roman Brough, it was an major export centre, and remember its location. Well, this shows the results of um, Cordus excavations, showing the walls with the bastions, notice the square bastions, and the theatre inscriptions actually found in this building here. Like Tio, which is there's massive defence with three sets of banks and ditches attached to this wall. And Ford certainly interpreted this as a town wall. So in 2014, I happened to have a little bit of spare money in the research account at the university. I was already very interested in for a long time. I got James Lyle, who's now my co-director, major geophysicist in the region, to carry out a magnetometer survey, which, as you can see, showed some features but was largely quite disappointing, largely because the site had been protected before it was turned into a playing field by a layer of limestone that was put on it. So eventually, then we decided, working with the town council at that stage, to run what became the Petuaria ReVisited project, which is set up with these aims to determine the character development extent of Roman Brough, to involve the community of Brough and district in exploring their Roman heritage, and Brough has been known for 101 years now as one of the early aircraft factories, and BAE systems are very much contracted, and therefore a new sense of identity was needed for the town, and possibly to go on to archaeology rather than aircraft, and also promote well-being through community participation. We got donors from businesses and various things. And the first thing we did was get David Staveley to run a GPR survey, which you can see from the video goes, I'll start that again, from a football pitch through the stone layer, and the Roman layers just beginning to show up. A major runway. Look at the buildings which are beginning to appear all along it, and the line of the defences. We go down to about 1.5 meters to 2 meters now, and there are still buildings there. So we decided to embark on a program of excavation, and we've so far done 6 years, starting in a scheduled area for 2 years, with an excavation also up in this corner and also down here to try and look at the perimeter and outside the walled enclosure. But because of some accidents of planning, I think, this area remained unscheduled. We also looked in there. And thanks to the enthusiasm of local residents, we've been excavating in gardens all along this edge as well. The results of those I won't be talking about today. So here is a close-up of the GPR. We were once deceived. Naively, I thought this D-shaped closure, albeit in this courtyard building, might be a small theatre. And so we excavated this trench across here. And yes, as you can see from this here, there is a complete match between the archaeology and the geophysics. However, Unfortunately, it didn't turn out to be it. It was the wrong date, and really, its D shape was really quite unsubstantial. However, we did find some interesting things in these trenches, half stone spread, the latest deposits. Then we got a D-shaped layer here, and we also this massive stone wall at the lowest deposits. We hope to go back eventually into the scheduled area after we finish writing it all up for the first 2 years. Corner trench, well, we found that Philip Corder had lots of long, narrow trenches right across the site. The courtyard builder must have been quite impressive. These are two of the walls of it, of the road trenches, and this whole area is a collapsed wall or ceiling of painted wall plaster. Unfortunately, it appeared to be the Roman equivalent of magnolia. You can see across here, and James, that's in COVID, um, bravely lifted this up to be conserved block a local builder who brought some plaster along and we just lifted on block. The Yorkshire project first came along and realised that it was going to be virtually impossible to dig this up as fragmentary, but we did in blocks eventually to try and reconstruct this. What was really important in this first year was our dating evidence. This is a Cranbeck painted parchment wax of the latest Roman pottery to be made in north of England. And immediately we're beginning to show that John Waite's idea of a very declining brough by this time was probably incorrect. Coinage, well, one of the coins from that area within the playing field was Julia Domina coin denarius. And there's a peak that Brian Sitch identified some years ago of coins of Carouse and Electus. And it's just a possibility that that old enclosure may relate to their activities on the River Humber. We've also got a lot of evidence for coins of Constantine. Some finds from our excavations you can see here, and thanks again, as I mentioned at the top slide, Stephen Greep was our main finds identification person, who will be no stranger to anybody in this group. And he managed to get a wonderful illustrator, Mark Hoyle, to do some illustrations. These here are some of his fantastic work. So we've got this nice bead here, plano convex bone counter, a bit of a shell bracelet, and this wonderful thing is probably a needle case identified by Stephen, and you can see it's really quite decorated. And what this group tells us is a lot of very late Roman activity within Brough. We've got tweezers, this copper bracelet here, and again, this jet bead. So we've got parallels in Hungary and Austria, and also this is crossbow type brooch, 354, 10 calcite, Reedsburg 4. And it's possible that these may represent a military presence. I think one of the quirkiest finds was this. There's an oyster shell with graffiti on it. Somewhere in there, there's a figure 11, and the joke that the 11th was actually a seat number for the theatre. Obviously, the theatre didn't exist then at that location. It was a joke. But here we've got this checkerboard pattern, which you can see. The earliest find we found was this fob dangler, probably first century AD, with part of its chain, which marks wonderful coin, really brings it quite well. So on the fences into the unscheduled area, and again, Corder's Tower, which you can see, Bastion 1 over here. So Corder found part of the rubbly wall here and some slightly better masonry, and then these wonderful section drawings for the 1930s. It's really high-class excavation. So our trench covered the corner here of the defences. A breakthrough really in 2025, 2023 rather, we found this bastion on the corner, which matched what Wiltshire had found in his earlier excavations for a fast along Welton Road. And he was able to do this wonderful reconstruction that you can see here. So it must have been very impressive. And think about it, think about the location. I just wondered if it got a Saxon short equivalent. I'm not the first to suggest that. Henry Clear did as late as 1977. So we were able then to go through the defences with this massive bank which backed that wall we were seeing. And the clay bank was sitting on this platform of stone. And within those layers, the clay bank, we're finding really third century material. Got this very nice fragment of burnt cup and this nice ring of twisted wire. And in 2025, we're able to get right down to this early ditch. Said in previous years, we knew reporters go quickly back to the plan that we had this period one sand rampart running through here and a clay rampart. We had certainly the clay rampart, we've just seen that. And we were slightly confused by this because we presume that the layers under here were the ramparts. Then in this year's excavation, when we opened the trend further toward this direction, it became clear that we weren't looking at a rampart, we're in fact looking at a ditch. And from the finds within almost certainly the first ditch by the original Roman soldiers coming from Humber around AD 70, 71 or so. You can see here the foundation of the clay rampart, the contaminated areas. So I've seen that dry away. A better view of the ditch. You can see various footpaths within it. And some finds. This is typical of what we found within those layers, sand layers below the layer of stones in here. And the find really, although not particularly prepossessing, was this very rare piece of lead glazed porphyry Leon ware, Flavian period. Had a quick look at this, at least a photograph of it, and it's really quite an important find. These are all from the defences area. Brooch here with part of the pin and a very nice part of a glass angle here, a melon bead, a disc brooch here, and the very nice trumpet brooch which came out on the penultimate day of the excavation. I was intrigued by a number of finds that other people found in kind of first century fort situation, which possibly showed the presence of women, although some of the men could have been well groomed. A couple of nail cleaners, tweezers, and a fragment of possibly a comb fragment. And then we've got this hairpin coming through here. The star finds really from 2024 with these. This chappie is a bit of an enigma. We wondered about it being a very highly decorated clay pipe, but it really looks so long for that. I sent a picture of it to Martin Hennig, who suggested it was either Apollo or perhaps a late Roman emperor or early Roman emperor. He looked at the hairstyle. But I just look at that face with those upturned eyes and wonder if it isn't actually much later. Another big thing here, again, Martin Hennig identified this as being nemesis on this intaglio within an iron ring. And there's some quite close parallels in Egypt for that. Gaming counters, as you can see here, I would play against this guy. A rectangular die? Well, counter here, and so on. Well, all this is possible. This team of volunteers. This is the team of 24. We had just as many in 25, but I really like this picture because it shows the fantastic work that they do. Important point to stress, all the volunteers that did pay to come and excavate. And we've got James, who's a volunteer, is the really only paid person on site. There he is in the hat. And we're able, thanks to funding this year and last year, to get two paid site supervisors. So, enormous thanks to volunteers. Without them, none of this would have been possible. And many thanks to all for our financial support. I won't read the list out, but I suppose key must be the Yorkshire Archaeological and Historical Society, who managed to fund us for every year of the excavation. And of course, the East Riding Archaeological Society, who are co-partners in this enterprise. So that's it from me. Thank you very much.